Hello, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. So you get your bonus Sunday recording. I was contemplating it, and I decided I'm going to do this recording here today. Why not? This really comes as a result of John Mangini tagging me in a post and basically including it in there. Basically, I'll show it on the screen here. It says, what are your thoughts? Question mark. Because I'm Carlos, this would be a good subject for you. And it tags in a video from SCV Sports Cards talking about PSA seemingly changed their position on altering cards in brackets. Stunning. And then bonus points for the thumbnail where it says epic rant, not just regular rant, epic rant. And you all know how I feel about the rants. Very exciting stuff. I may have made a video about it, but could have used some flames though. Some flames would have given it that little extra. Put Jeff Wilson in the thumbnail just for no reason. Might have worked. But anyway, I did watch the video and I was entertained. But as usual, I'm going to disappoint because I'm going to look at it for what it actually is versus what people want to freak out about. Because Lord knows people in this space want to freak out about everything. So this will be kind of a mini PSA news roundup since there's two specific things that came up this week that people decided they wanted to chat on a little bit. And one of them we did on the live stream. And then the other one obviously is this one here. So credit to John for tagging me on it. So ask and ye shall receive. So here we are. The first one, I'm going to disappoint you because my thoughts on this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do you one better. I'm actually going to give you a dramatic reenactment of my visceral response, my real visceral response to when I saw the news about this survey. Huh. Interesting. We'll see where they go with that. End scene. My non-reaction comes for one very good reason. It's a survey. A survey. Hold on. This is where we got to make sure we got to have visual aids here. This is important. I'm reminded of something classic, a historic moment in the sports world. And this is my thought on it. Practice. We're talking about practice. Get Allen Iverson out here and have him, instead of practice, just have him substituted out for a survey. We're talking about a survey, not the game, not the game. Now, obviously, I'm having a little bit of fun with it. That's going to go in the thumbnail, though. Allen Iverson is getting onto the thumbnail. We're going to have some fun with this. But look, the reason why I say this is because it is a survey. It would be a different conversation if we were having a discussion on a announced policy change, an actual policy change. I don't care what they put on that survey. They could have put on that survey, hey, would you consider a service where we hunt down your family for sport, tie you to a chair, and you watch us murder them for $75? Well, first of all, that's a horrible thing to say. That's at least $100 service. PSA shouldn't shortchange themselves. Bullets are expensive. But the point is, whatever it says on the survey is not binding. It's not a contract. It's basically soliciting feedback on it. Now, I will throw something in there that is kind of fun that I was kind of as soon as I saw it, and then obviously I saw them change the wording and then the reaction to it and all that. There is a thought that crossed my mind very quickly as soon as they kind of went through that whole thing, and specifically the reaction to it. And by that, I mean PSA's reaction to the reaction. And it led me down the path to looking at something else that we've talked about in recent times. I don't necessarily want to give them this much credit, but I'm going to throw this out at you. And maybe if you want to wear some tinfoil hat, then we can talk about it. We can think about it together and something to chew on. And my big takeaway from it really came down to, like I said, the reaction they had to the reaction and how quickly they were out there ready to give a full explanation for it, to clarify their position. They, Ryan Hogue, the president of PSA, specifically went out there and responded to different comments on it, tweeted and made specific references to it to try to clarify it. Obviously, they reworded it. And then Chris Carlin from PSA was actually on Hobby Hotline and specifically talked about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a clip on that. And like I said, the reaction to it was very direct. They were asked these questions in social medias and these different places, and they had no hesitation to come right out of the blocks and answer really quickly. And the reason why I say this is kind of interesting is it is in contrast to something else. And like I said, if we want to put our tinfoil hats on, we can have a little bit of fun with this one and kind of go, I wonder if. And again, I don't know if I want to give them this much credit, but I wonder if. But let's play the clip here from Chris Carlin responding to this specific thing on Hobby Hotline. Okay, so I'm going to hit play here. I've got it queued up to the correct spot. I will actually leave a link in the description to this for you. It's at about 1420. So if I remember, I'll actually, in the link, I'll try to include it so that's queued up to this section for you just to save you a little bit of time. Otherwise, you can just watch the full episode. But it's just shy of 15 minutes in is where the question gets asked. So I'm going to play it for you so you can see it for yourself.
I think we need to talk a little bit about the Ryan Hogue tweet and the cleaning. If you can comment on it. If not, definitely want to talk about the two new facilities that have opened up, because I think people don't realize that one is exclusively for tickets in Texas and another one in Florida, and hopefully to speed up turnaround times. So I know people have a lot of questions. Chris, what can you talk about?
Yeah, I mean, we have a team that is always looking at what else can we do at PSA to help collectors on their journey. We have a mission statement: make collecting safe, easy, and fun. It's something I really believe in. Like that's an important mission statement. And we're always looking at what collectors would like from us in terms of services. It's crazy to me how we forget sometimes how different everyone collects. Every collector is different, even though we all are, like you said, like we're all nerds. I'm in a safe space, but we all collect in different ways. I collect different than Brody does. And because of that, it's important for a company like PSA to know, what services do people like. So we frequently put out surveys about collecting habits and what services can we offer that collectors might be interested in. For some reason, this recent survey where we were looking at, a variety of options that we could give collectors has stuck out with one thing that we put on there, which was cleaning up the card a little bit, doing some basic cleanup for it. And right now, graders actually do some minor touch-ups to customers' cards when they come in. If someone has a big thumbprint on a card, they'll clean it up a little bit with they're not using solutions or different materials like that. They're using a microfiber cloth and cleaning it up, touching it up. So if people with us having this relationship with eBay, a lot of people now are buying cards directly from eBay. A new service we just launched is buy from eBay and go directly to grading. So you never even touch the card before it goes to grading. So how can you even look at it to properly assess if it needs to be wiped down? So that's honestly the reason that the company put that question in there and wanted to see if people would want a service like that. But for some reason, sometimes the hobby globs on to little things and makes a big deal out of them. So that seems to be the one that has been causing a lot of collector. Well, what are they doing? Why are they cleaning cards? It's simple wipe down service, so not really that big a deal.
So there you go. That's the explanation from Chris Carlin from PSA. Obviously, I let it run a little bit so that he could give his examples and go through the whole bit on there. Now, the reality is you can choose to accept the party line on that one or not. My thing is, as I said earlier, it's still a survey. So I'm not putting too much stock in it. I don't care. And more importantly, as an individual collector, it doesn't affect me one way or the other. Now, realistically, if they make that policy change in there, then I'm more than happy to have a more extended conversation about it because then I think that's more interesting. But again, I go back to what I said a moment ago. Even if they made that policy change tomorrow and it's all Kurt's Card Care, sponsored by Kurt's Card, it'll be entertaining. I still won't care. Like as an individual, I'm only speaking as the one person here. I won't care one way or the other what they do because then I can choose to partake in it or not partake in it. And more importantly, I can say, oh, they're going to do it this way. I'm not into that. I don't want to use that kind of stuff on there. So then I could use one of the alternatives, one of the competitors or whatever the case may be. I always evaluate where I stand on it based on how does this affect me? It's a very selfish way of looking at the hobby, but realistically, this is as you, the individual, should be looking at. How does this affect you? What does it matter to you? Or does it change something related to the way you're collecting? And that's always the question that I ask. And I pose it to people. Sometimes the people that are most concerned about these greater scandals and things in the hobby are the people least affected by it. The people that in reality, it's like, no, it just gives you something to talk about. And by the way, no harm in that. The whole Jeff Wilson thing that we had fun with the last week or two pretty much was a case study. This exact thing. We were able to get so much mileage out of literal nothing. We were able to basically fabricate something out of nothing and get so much entertainment value out of it. But that tells you where the hobby is. People are more interested in freaking out about hypotheticals than they are in the actual things that are occurring. So it didn't surprise me that the response was so visceral. But it is interesting to note that Chris Carlin in this example was obviously willing to talk about it right away. No problem. You asked the question. Here, let's go into it. And then also, like I said, Ryan Hogue in the social medias was able to post similar kind of things. They gave a very consistent answer on this. Whether you accept it or not is a different conversation, but they were quick to respond on this. Now, one more thing I'll say, kind of pushing back on what Chris said, though, is that, the hobby does take things and blow them out of proportion, makes mountains out of molehills. That is true. However, the wording and the way this was done actually left plenty of room for that. I'll borrow Neo Cards and Comics' Instagram post here that shows the two beside each other, and we can quickly look at them. And you can see, I understand fully why people responded the way they did, even though, like I said, it's still a survey. The top one there is the original wording on it. It says card cleaning right in it. Card cleaning, $2.99 per card. Now, the description is cleaning and light buffing service to remove fingerprints, smudges, dust, and reduce minor surface scratches prior to grading. Now, the first part of that, remove fingerprints, smudges, dust, you can pretty much accomplish with one of these. All you need is a microfiber cloth, and pretty much that's it. You're done. Anytime I've ever sent any cards in for grading, especially chromium cards, this is exactly, you wipe off the front of it. I have literally had cards that were in holders with dust on them. We cracked them out, removed the dust, send them back in, and boom. There was nothing wrong with the card. It was a piece of dust that was stuck to the front of the card. You remove it and you're done. You can do that on your own. Obviously, you don't need to pay anybody to do that. However, using the words card cleaning at the beginning of it is what immediately leads everybody down the path. And the removing fingerprint smudges dust, that you can handle with a microfiber cloth. The minor surface scratches prior to grading, that is a little bit of a different conversation. Light buffing surface offers the possibility of using some kind of a chemical or a substance. And obviously they rectified it. Then they updated the wording, which of course leads even more people to question, what were you originally intending? Now it's called wipe down service. So it even goes more directly into the microfiber cloth version. And it says now wipe down service to primarily remove fingerprints, smudges, and dust prior to grading. The light buffing is gone from the wording. So I totally understand why this led a lot of people to immediately go, wait a minute, are we talking about Kurt's card care? Are we talking about a wax? Are we talking about a chemical of some kind? And that was the question that people asked. And that was the question that Ryan Hogue and the other ones pushed back on, and Chris Carlin in that clip I played for you specifically went against. So that totally get it and totally understand it. But again, we're talking about practice or a survey. So we'll see. And obviously, if they make a policy change of any kind, then we can talk about it further because there's more to talk about. So for me, it's something that was entertaining to watch. The reaction to it was very funny. I got a kick out of it. But ultimately, for me, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to wait and see what they do with it. I genuinely don't care one way or the other. Let's see what you actually end up doing versus freaking out over a survey. Now, with all that said, there's something very important that I feel I would be remiss if I didn't at least touch on. Let's wear the tinfoil hats for just a second. Obviously, the change in the wording, the quick and speed at which they came out to specifically clarify their position on this, all leads down people to look at them very suspiciously. But I guess one thing that I would kind of point out, in contrast to that, something they talk nothing about, they say nothing about, and in a lot of ways, again, I don't know if I would give them this much credit, but submitted for your approval and consideration, I would offer this. One thing they have said absolutely nothing about, by contrast. So obviously their communication systems work. Their social media works. They are capable of answering questions when they need to clarify their position on something. Now, interestingly enough, every time that someone has tried to invoke this here, Backyard Breaks doing a break at PSA headquarters, every time, every social media post, any videos, anything have all been met with a large, overwhelming amount of, I don't know if you can hear that on your end, but it was crickets. The point is that there has been no response of any kind related to this. So here's my question. Let me pose it to you. If we wear our little tinfoil hats here for a second, is it possible that someone at PSA decided to be very clever, and as a little diversionary tactic, we left the wording in this way accidentally on purpose? Do I give them that much credit for being that kind of sneaky? Not necessarily, but I do think it's kind of interesting. I would throw it out there that obviously they were getting a lot of flack for the Backyard Breaks Association and not severing ties with them with all their scandals and all the issues and grant from Backyard Breaks and all that. And that's one thing that was the topic of discussion prior to it. And now we're talking about a survey. On the grand scheme of things, which one, if you're PSA, would you rather be getting flack for? Would you rather be getting flack for a survey, which is really not committing to anything, really? And you can truthfully say that, oh, no, you guys are misunderstanding. It's just a survey. Here's what we actually meant. We've updated the wording to reflect it. So what are you guys freaking out about? It's not a big deal. But you're spending all your energy over here, where the other thing has been completely glossed over for the moment, because obviously it'll come back around. It'll be a topic of discussion again. Like, why'd you do that? What is going on with that? And I think if I'm looking at the dates on the post here, it looks like it probably already happened. Regardless, though, the point was that it did occur. And then we had this other thing to kind of keep everybody's attention right around the same time that this was actually going on over on the other side of it with the PSA HQ. Just something interesting. Again, throwing it out there is just a thought, just something to think about, because I do think it is kind of amusing that right around the same time that that other thing was going on, because I think it says May 27th to May 30th in between that whole thing. So yeah, right around the same time that's all going on, we're all set up to freak out about rewording a survey. But maybe Chris is right. And maybe they just don't see how anyone could possibly have misinterpreted it, and they just misread the room. That could be the case too. Who knows? All right, real quick, we'll do this other one as well since it is PSA related. So we'll keep the theme on there. We'll do a twofer. And this one is related to PSA announcing that they're going to open up two other offices, one in Texas, and then obviously the big scandalousness is one in PSA Boca Raton. And this was from PSA's own press release, so I'll leave a link in the description to it for you if you want to read it yourself. But I'm going to focus on a specific section here. It says here that PSA's Boca Raton expansion will service trading cards at the outset, operating out of the same office complex as SGC, another grading provider owned by Collectors Universe, with both companies working independently. So this is the section that led a lot of people to make a lot of questions related to it. PSA customers may receive orders shipped from Boca Raton starting this fall. Now, this whole thing kind of reopened the question about the future of SGC. And obviously, that's a big topic of conversation. Right from the moment they purchased SGC and added it into the collector's holdings, the question was, what's going to happen with them long term? And it was left open ended. So, what I'll do is this: I'll just kind of relay out kind of the thought process for it, and I'll give you my angle on it. And then obviously, we can have a discussion on it in the comment section or whatever if you like. What it comes down to is this: can they use this as the first step towards Thanos snapping SGC out of existence? Totally. 100% they could. However, the business case against it remains the same. It hasn't changed. So really what it comes down to is this. I guess going back to what I said a moment ago, do we give credit for being, playing 4D chess out there and figuring out a way to create a diversionary tactic to avoid a conversation they don't want to have with a conversation they're more than welcome to have? Like arguing about a survey is very small and minor compared to dealing with the poison that is backyard breaks at this stage. So you'd rather deal with one over the other. It's a lot an easier thing to deal with. So do we give them credit for being that clever? And then on the other hand, do we give the PSA accounting department no credit whatsoever for being able to do math? Because that's really what you're talking about. Every time the folks freak out about SGC, can they get rid of SGC? Totally, 100%. And I'll just speak for myself again personally. I don't care one way or the other. I'm not attached to SGC. I don't like the tux. It's fine. I have cards that are in that holder and they serve their purpose, and I have no problem if they're here for the next 50 years. And I don't care if they get rid of them tomorrow. It makes no difference for me one way or the other. However, if I'm looking at this from a business perspective, if I'm looking at the business case isn't there to get rid of it. The business case is to basically cut down costs in whatever way you can. And doing that co-location in Boca Raton is a way that you can actually take advantage of certain things, because it doesn't make sense to have a complete other HQ somewhere else and pay all that extra without taking advantage of whatever you can to reduce certain costs. However, I'm going to point something out to you here. We'll go back over to Instagram, and it's just going to look at Gemrate here for a second, because it's good to remind ourselves this from time to time. So here we don't have the stuff from May yet. It's only June the 1st that I'm recording this, so we don't have that information yet. But here was the month of April. So in the month of April, PSA did 1.56 million cards. That is 29% up year over year, which is massive. It's huge. CGC obviously did very well, but we'll do the breakdown here in a second and we'll look at it a little bit closer. But then SGC did 167,000 cards. That's up 2% year over year. So between SGC and PSA, if you just look and add the two of them up, you're talking about comfortably well over 1.7 million cards in a single month. Now, that's a huge number. And if you look at it, it dwarfs what everybody else is doing. Even though CGC obviously is higher than SGC, that's in totality. CGC is comfortably dwarfing what Beckett is doing. So you've got the number one and number three. But then when you break it down a little bit more here, you look into sports. Well, sports, SGC is number two. PSA is number one, but SGC is number two. They're right there, way higher than CGC and way, way higher than Beckett. The difference maker right now is in TCG. So here's the funny part, the irony of all this. A lot of folks in the comment sections, everything, that freak out about everything PSA does or doesn't do, or whatever the case may be, or they don't like it, or they like it, or whatever the case is. I'm hearing all this from the sports card folks, but actually TCG is almost 1 million cards on the month of April for PSA. So in reality, I'd be curious to see what the Pokemon people think. The Pokemans, those people are the ones that are actually driving a ton of the business. PSA could get rid of all the sports card business, and obviously it would be huge, but they'd still be doing over 2/3 of their business right now as it is. It's up 111% year over year, 25% month over month. And we'll definitely see what the May stuff looks like. I'd be genuinely curious to see how the numbers shift from one to the other, but these are huge numbers. In this case, SGC is very small, very minor in the TCG space. This is where CGC does the majority of its damage, because they just haven't been able to get that foothold, and Beckett's stuck. They're stuck in neutral. They do okay in TCG. They don't do great in sports cards. They're number 4 in sports cards, number 3 in TCG. SGC is all the way at the bottom for TCG, but they're number 2 in sports cards. So my point to all of this really comes down to this. Could they 100% use this as a step towards getting rid of SGC permanently? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But the business case works against that. The business case actually is do everything you can to reduce as many costs as possible. Do whatever you can, whatever's redundant, whatever you've got 2 of, get rid of one of them. Hang on to the branding of it, because for me, it still comes down to this. Getting rid of SGC doesn't make you more money if you're collectors, because you're not going to get the transfer. The 167,000 cards you got from SGC, if you snap them out of existence, you're over 1.7 million between the two brands. PSA's brand is what it is. They're going to get the cards they're going to get, but you're not going to suddenly transfer that 167 over, because there's a bunch of people that grade with SGC, with CGC, and with Beckett explicitly because it's not PSA. You're not going to win that crowd over. You don't suddenly magically transfer them from one place to the other. And this has been tried in a lot of different industries and a lot of different categories. People think, oh, well, they'll come over because we're the biggest player in the space. Not necessarily. That historically has never been the case. I can use a lot of examples, but actually, let me use a fun one, since obviously I've got my other YouTube channel where I talk about the wrestling. Back in 2001, we still had WWE and WCW. Those were the two brands in North America. Number one and number two, they were the ones fighting there during the Monday Night Wars era. Towards the tail end, by 2001, it was very clear that WCW was on its way out. They were struggling. They were doing a terrible job. But this is important. They still had a core audience of hardcore people. WWE bought WCW for literally pennies on the dollar. I'm not going to re-legislate the entire thing. I'm just giving you the high level so you understand this point. So what happened is WWE assumed in its mind, because at the very tail end in the Monday Night Wars period, the ratings were everything. You had WWE's ratings here. It's still WWF at the time, but you had their ratings here and you had WCW ratings here. But even at the tail end, as WCW was struggling and they were creatively bankrupt and everything was going against them and the walls were caving in, when WWE bought them, they still had over 2 million viewers at the tail end. WWE had comfortably over that, but WWE in a lot of ways, they assumed in their minds, they thought that this audience, they assumed and they thought that this audience was simply going to carry over. Now, obviously, there were people that were watching both shows, but it's tough to watch both shows at the same time. The point is, they assumed that this audience would just magically carry over and they'd pick up whatever was the WCW only crowd. Well, WWE was going to be the only game in town. So therefore, if they want to watch professional wrestling, they have to watch WWE. That didn't happen. So a bunch of those folks were watching WCW because it was specifically an alternative to what WWE was offering. And even though WWE was the number one in the space, and when they did that, they basically eliminated all the competition, that audience didn't carry over. And over the years, as they went by, as instead of the ratings going up, they just steadily kept going down. Now, in the long run, WWE figured out a million ways to monetize this. Their ratings are actually way lower than they were back in the day for all the self-promotion and talk about all the great things they're doing. However, they figured out how to monetize every single little penny. They've never been making more money than they have in the last several years. This past quarter, there's actually started to dip down a little bit because, again, there's only so much you can only squeeze the customer so long. The reason I'm giving you this story, is that eliminating the competition. Forget about monopoly talk. It doesn't matter. I don't care what you think about monopolies. The point is that there is an audience that seeks out the alternative. And if you eliminate the alternative completely, that doesn't necessarily get you that audience. And in this case, you do have a few other options. So if you remove SGC off the chessboard, that doesn't mean you get the 167,000 cards. That means some of them are going to funnel to CGC, some of them are going to funnel to Beckett, some of them are going to funnel to another player, someone else in the space, someone lower down the food chain. Whoever you believe that to be. Included in this Gemrate data, kind of in the description, in the actual write-up, if you look at it, Tag had 37,000 cards. Now, I can tell you the majority of those are the Pokemon cards. Pokemon is actually the one driving a lot of the grading right now in terms of sheer volume and numbers. Arena Club, believe it or not, had 14,000 cards, which was up 19% from March and 5% year over year. That's included in the Gemrate data. I'll include a link to it if you want to check it out. It's actually in the write-up. If you actually have to go look at the write-up, they're not part of the graphic. But that information is included in there. So the point is, there are alternative players in there. Getting rid of this isn't necessarily the business case that I would present. The business case that I would present is just have it there as a brand underneath your main PSA brand. Keep it around the price point that it is. But if you offer $15 grading and you get the turnaround time somewhere close to back to where it was, you're going to have an audience there that will still send the cards to get it in the tuxedo. And you'll honestly make more money that way than you will. But that doesn't mean you can't shove them into the same office and have them on different floors. Regardless of whatever else you're concerned about on that, I get it. And again, if they get rid of them, they get rid of them. That's fine. We'll talk about it at that point. But I'm saying from a business case, put them on the same floor. Do whatever you can to reduce the extra cost and friction. You don't need to have two of everything. So get rid of all the rest of it. I heard the points made about, this is the first steps in terms of when you finally take it over. And I agree. If that would garner you the additional revenue, you can save the money. But if you bought the company and you don't get the additional revenue and you simply lose the market share, right now you have the market share. So eliminating the other brand doesn't give you more market share. The potential is it actually reduces your market share, and that's counterproductive. It literally works against the other way. So I guess what it comes down to is, so do we give the group a credit for being kind of sneaky and backhanded, or are we saying that the accountants can't figure out how to math? Because the math doesn't math. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You can 100% do it. But I genuinely believe there's more value in just keeping the other brand around, even if it's under your auspices, even if it's under your category. Same thing happens in cell phones, same thing happens in banks, same thing happens in a lot of these other. Why would you have this other brand competing against your own brand? Why would you cannibalize against yourself? The answer is always market share. Right now, they've got the market share with both of them. 167,000 cards. Just by having that additional brand, you're getting those extra cards. Those people are not necessarily going to transfer over to your main PSA, even if you took them off the table. But that's just my take. Again, they could get rid of SGC tomorrow, and it wouldn't surprise me. I'd probably advise them against it, but that doesn't mean that I don't get a say in the matter. So regardless, we'll see what happens with that one. Same thing. We'll see what happens with it, and we'll go with it. And maybe they can give us some more service. At least it gives us something to talk about. And it worked. Once again, I guess so. I don't think it qualifies quite in the rage bait category, though. I guess it kind of did, though. Indirectly, didn't it? Epic rant? Epic? Really? Epic rant? Not just regular rant? We got to make this one epic? I do enjoy my performative outrage. That is always a lot of fun. But anyway, so those are my takes on the two things. The first one is it's a survey. It's practice, man. It's not the game. It's practice. And the second thing is I don't necessarily see this as the harbinger of doom for SGC. It could be. It could still be. There's no reason to believe it can't. But I think the business case is a little stronger for just having the two brands. And for me, like I said, I would honestly just have PSA be a little bit more expensive, have it available there for that, and then have SGC at around $15, give or take, and then offer that option. If you can figure out the turnaround time and just get it back, again, it doesn't even have to be as fast as it was before. If you can just get it in line where it's a little bit quicker than PSA, there you go. You can have your cake and eat it too. You get both of them. But again, more than anything else, I would like to know what the Pokemans folks think, because there's almost 1 million cards for PSA on Pokemon. So these are the people who are really driving the grading side of the hobby at this point. It's not the sports card folks. Y'all are the minority. Just something to think about. Anyway, that's it for this one. I appreciate the prompt. So thank you to Mangini Collection for providing for tagging me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have talked about it, honestly. But we can definitely follow through and we can have a greater discussion down the road. Again, though, I'd like to actually see a announcement of an actual policy change as opposed to a survey. But again, y'all do you. Feel about it however you want to feel. I just find it very entertaining to watch the reaction to it and the different takes. That said, more videos come up on the channel. Live streams on Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, longest running episodic, whatever it is, where we talk about a lot of foolishness. We talked about a lot of foolishness this past week. It was actually very impressive how much miscellaneous junk we got in there. Usually the way it goes. Regardless, that'll be it for me. Feel free in the comment section to disagree with everything I said. SGC is doomed. They're going to personally Thanos them out of space. SGC Pete is going to get tarred and feathered. It's going to be horrific. The screams will be heard all the way from Boca Raton. It's going to be crazy. And then the other one, of course, find out what other survey items do you want to see that will outrage you? What other things can they charge you for that will make you angry? Remember to bring your epic rants. Aside from that, like if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.